Wow. Okay. All right, Lawlers. In today's beginner guide, we are covering off Ryze. He's a mid-ranged AP burst champion. So we're going to talk about his build, his runes, his abilities, and how to play this guy in solo queue, which is not an easy feat. He's traditionally a very, very tough champ to pull off in solo queue, but we'll get into all that good stuff in a bit. Okay, so before we talk about the build, I just want to quickly touch on his passive, where he gains mana based on the ability power, and then also his abilities do additional damage based on his bonus mana. So what that means is in your build, you're going to be rushing mana items. You're going to start pretty much every single game with Tear of the Goddess and 2 potions. That's going to be your normal start. And then obviously the Stealth Ward. With that, you're going to just try and stack up your Tear of the Goddess in lane. And we're going to get into all this stuff with some examples in a bit. But you're going to stack up the Tear of the Goddess, and you're going to eventually build into Everfrost. This is your core item. It gives you ability power. It gives you health. It gives you mana. It gives you ability haste. And it gives you an active that lets you slow people and root them if you catch them in the center of that active cone. So this is going to be a rush item on Ryze, and then second, you're going to follow up with the Boots of Lucidity. And then third is a little bit more dependent on the game that you're actually in. If you want even more mana and ability power and really stack off those stats, you can go with Archangel's Staff. If you want some survivability because there's a bunch of AD and assassin champs on the enemy team, you can go Zhonya's. Or if you just want pure burstiness and a little bit more ability haste, you can go Cosmic Drive. Generally for me, Zhonya's is my third. Ryze just being kind of that mid-range champ. You're going to be pretty close to anybody you're trying to engage on, so you do want some survivability, and honestly I just feel like Zhonya's is a pretty broken item. Riot still hasn't done a good enough job of nerfing that item, so it's just really strong on mages in general. For the summoner spells, it's going to be teleport and flash. You do want the teleport because you may run pretty quick in lane, and also you want to make sure that you can hit your item spikes without missing too much XP or farm. Ryze scales extremely well, so I think teleport's probably the best rune on these types of champs that scale and don't want to miss any last hits or waves or experience. And then in terms of the runes, so Phase Rush is really, really strong on Ryze. You're going to be comboing and weaving spells together a lot, so when you hit somebody with 3 attacks or abilities, you're going to get a bunch of move speed. This just helps you escape ganks as well in the lane, so when you catch somebody that's trying to gank you with 3 abilities or attacks, you can just zoom away pretty easily. And then pretty stock standard stuff after that. Mana Flow to just stock up our mana piles even more. We've got Transcendence for more ability haste, Gathering Storm for the scaling as we get into the later and mid stages of the game, and then Taste of Blood and Ravenous Hunter just give us some really good sustain past kind of like that 5-10 minute mark when we actually start comboing off. So that's the build and the runes and the basic kind of approach to playing Ryze as a champion. Let's jump into the river and just combo off some abilities now and figure out how to actually weave some spells together with Ryze properly. Okay, so when you go into lane as Ryze, there's a few starts you can do. W start is popular against if you're playing in melee champ. All W is Rune Prison. He deals some damage and he slows people for a little bit. So it's going to just look like this. That's an auto. You can just click W on someone. It's going to put that ring on them, slow them, deal some damage. That's pretty good against melee champs who just can't dodge it. It's point and click, slow and damage, so there's really nothing they can do to trade back at you. The second ability you're usually going to pick up with Ryze is going to be your Q Overload. This is a skill shot. It just shoots out basically a blast of AP. Okay, it doesn't go through units, so if there's a minion or another champ blocking the one you're trying to hit, if we were trying to hit that back champ, it's not going to go through. Okay, so just keep that in mind when you're shooting this ability. It will not go through targets, so you're going to have to use this as a bit of a snipe ability. An easy way, obviously, to hit your Q, even at level 2, is if you can slow somebody and then use your Q on them like so. Okay? The third ability in Ryze's basic ability set is his E Spell Flux. Now, when you pick up all 3, this is when Ryze kind of unlocks in lane and you can start to do some cool stuff. So Spell Flux doesn't do the greatest amount of damage. He fires an orb, it deals a little bit of magic damage. But what it does is it applies Flux to the enemy champion for 4 seconds, okay? When Flux is on an enemy champion, all of Ryze's abilities, if used on that champion, actually become a little bit more powerful. And what I mean by that is, you'll see if I just press E, it's going to apply Flux to someone. The cool thing as well is if someone's close, it applies Flux to everyone. We'll get into that. But you click E, it applies Flux. Normally, our Q would deal 191 damage, right? But when we apply Flux to someone and we hit them with our Q, it actually deals more damage. So you'll see here, now I'm going to hit it, right? 256, or 211, sorry, right? So 1 Q, 192. Now, 212. So it's not huge, it's a little bit extra, okay? The other thing you can do with your W now when there's Flux on is your W, instead of slow, it stuns. So if we have E on and now your W, that's actually going to stun them. So you're going to see a different animation come up around that champion. The normal animation on your W just looks like a little bit of a ring, but when you use E first and then you W, it's going to be the full stun like that. Okay? And then if you E and E someone again, it just spreads the Flux as well. Okay, so you can see here, enemies already afflicted with Flux will cause it to spread further. Okay, so skill shot on your Q, a slow on your W, and then some damage on your E, but once you hit someone with the E, all of your abilities become a little bit more empowered. All right, that's it. Now, weaving these together is the tricky part with Ryze, because what's cool about your Q is whenever you use your W or your E, your Q actually comes back off cooldown instantly. So I'm just going to take off the auto refresh here so you guys can see that. If I was going to fire my Q off, it's going to be on a 3-4 second cooldown. But if I actually use my E after it, you can see my Q comes off cooldown. And it's going to be the same if I use my W. If I use my W after, my Q comes off cooldown. So you'll kind of, there's like memes out there about Ryze players. You're always just trying to weave your W and your E in between Q casts, and you're just trying to machine gun off combos like that, okay? So the reason this is hard is because while your W and E are not skill shots, they're point and click abilities, you can just click on a champ and do them, your Q is a skill shot, and that's where most of your damage comes from in your combos is Ryze, okay? So a very basic combo with Ryze could look like Q, E, Q, W, Q. Right? Very, very simple. After each Q cast, you're going to use a W or an E, whichever's off cooldown, so you can keep weaving more Qs in on that. All right? So Q, E, Q, W, Q. All we're doing is we're weaving our W and our E in between Qs. I recommend you always start the combo with the Q. A lot of beginner Ryze players will try and E first. You're giving up a free Q when you do that, because if you cast one Q and you cast E, it's already off cooldown. So you get that extra damage in from that first Q. So always try and lead your combos off with at least one Q first. Okay? Alright, let's drop another... Let me drop one more buddy down here just so you guys can see in terms of team fighting. So in a 1v1 situation, if we just clear all these dummies, in a 1v1 you catch somebody off guard, you come to fight them, you're going to Q, E, Q, W, Q, and that's going to burn them for a lot of damage. You can see right here the total on that combo with a few autos was like, you know, over 1,000 damage. And you can just keep that going with your Q and E's as it comes off cooldown. What's cool with Ryze is in team fights, again, it's a little bit tough because he's a mid-range champ, but if you have someone kind of tanking for you, or you're tanky enough yourself and you feel you can burn people down, when you E, it's going to apply to everyone, and that Q hits everyone too. So you can really start to deal some great AoE damage. So a combo against a team, if you have someone frontlining for you, if we had like, let's just say this is a Renekton or something, you could come in just behind him and help with like the same combo Q, EQ, WQ, and then just keep EQing whenever you can, right? That's essentially Ryze in a nutshell, all right? So where we get a little bit more complicated with Ryze in terms of using everything with your team is obviously when you learn your R, your ultimate, which is Realm Warp. Passively, it does give you a little bit of extra oomph. All of your bonus damage from Flux is increased by 40%, so that does help. You should still always put points in your R. The active, though, Ryze opens up a portal to another location, and after 2 seconds, himself and all of the allies in that portal are teleported to that location. So, a lot of words in that. Essentially, you can see here, when I hover over it, it's not huge right now. It's kind of like a semi-global ult. So if I wanted to like R over here, you'll see a portal opens up, I'm in it, and then I go to that new location. The more points you put in it, the bigger that circle gets, so it becomes a little bit more of a true global. So you can see here now it's slightly larger. You know, in some situations you can use this in lane to escape ganks. I'd say probably in your solo queue games, that's going to be really the only advantage of using Ryze's R. It's going to be to push side lanes as, you know, a side laning champ, pick up farm, and then use the R to maybe rotate over to like a Rift fight or a Baron fight, or just get back to mid lane to help. That's one key way you can use it. The other key way is if you actually want to escape a gank. So if I was in lane here and I'm fighting my my enemy champion, let's say, you know, I'm just doing my thing here, and then somebody comes to gank me from this side, I could just quickly press R over here and then get teleported out of that and get a free escape. Okay, the key thing to know, though, if someone disrupts you with a stun or a silence, you're not going to be able to take that teleport. So just make sure you dodge and dance around within that portal if you need to dodge that. So if this was an Udyr, for example, I'm trying to escape, just make sure you run to the edge before he can stun you with his E and stop that. Okay. So that's pretty much it for the abilities. You're going to max out your Q, followed by your E, and then your W last. Okay, your Q is your biggest damage ability. It's going to be in your combos non-stop. The E is obviously very good to spam to spread flux and empower your other abilities. And then your W is kind of a little bit of damage, obviously, up front, but more for the utility of the slow and the stun. So you really just have to max that one out last. Alright guys, so let's jump into a lane now against enemy bot and some minions and talk about the lane phase and how you might want to play before you start side laning and things get crazy in team fights. Waiting for minions to spawn, let's just quickly again talk about how we want to approach the lane phase. So if you're against a melee matchup, you're going to start your W, use that for some free poke early on, maybe grab the advantage in the lane by getting a health lead on the enemy champion. If you're against another mage or a ranged champion, you're going to want to start your Q. Let's just start the Q here in general. It's just a bit of a safer start. And it's easier to comprehend how you're going to scale up and go into your level 3. So let's just pick up the Q here to start. So overload, this is our skill shot. It just fires a little bit of a blast of AP. And once we pick up our E, which is the spell flux, if someone has that flux on them, it's going to do a little bit more damage. Okay, so early lane phase, I would recommend always just letting the waves push into you. Don't even bother fighting for level 2 as Ryze. If you get yourself in a position where you're pushing the wave, you have no escapes early. Even with your phase rush, it's just really bad news. You won't be able to escape ganks, and if you're dead early as a scaling champ, you're just setting yourself back even more. Okay, so here you can use your Q and your auto to try and grab some of these last hits. Your Q early, you can see, does not deal that much damage, and sometimes it's hard to hit in between the minions if you're trying to snipe one specifically, because it does have a little bit of a wide hitbox. But just try and use it when you can, and if a champion comes up to try and hit you or harass you, you can use it on them as well. Okay, but you can see here what we've done. We've let this wave push into us. Now we're going to start to auto and try and keep it here, get some of these last hits. And I actually like to pick up my E second, because you can see with that flux you can deal a little bit more damage with your Q. Now, what we need to make sure we do on each of these combos is actually lead with our Q if we're going to combo off on this RE, because we get a free reset on our Q anytime we use E or W. Okay, so early on you actually still don't want to use too much mana looking for those trades. You're not going to be able to blast someone from 100 health to 0 early on. You can't one-shot anyone as Ryze early on. It's more about saving your mana so that when you're ready to back, you can use your E's on the wave and push everything in, because remember, your E bounces to all of these minions that are close together. And that means that when you E and Q, wow, that minion died. When you E and Q, you'll hit everything with your Q as well. Okay, so we'll show that on the backline minions here. So let's say I wanted to push this in. You can E and Q and it'll hit all of them. Now again, early on, our AP is not that high, but when you want to push, you want to just make sure you have enough mana saved up to E the waves and Q them. So for example here, let's just say that we wanted to push this in right now. We're going to E, Q the wave, and then we're going to E and Q the wave again, right? Okay, W resets our Q, E resets our Q, so you can see that's how you could combo as Ryze, but we've lost all of our mana already. So that's where it's a little bit of a balancing act. You'll get the hang of it after a couple games, but again, in general, just save your mana for pushing waves early on until you get yourself set up with one of these lost chapters or the blasting wand. Then you can start to look to use your abilities and your mana a little bit more to trade. Okay, so let's build towards this lost chapter if we can. We don't really have enough gold for anything but a pair of boots and the sapphire crystal. And again, we're running teleport because as a scaling champ, we do not want to miss any XP or gold opportunities. So here we're going to open up the combo, and then we're going to EQ, we'll W. Qs do not go through minions, so that's why you see we couldn't kill her there. But if you can look for some of those trades when you get one of those first teleports back up. Okay, so here again, because she's left lane, Ryze is very good at pushing waves. You can just E a group of minions, and then it's going to spread to all of them, and then you Q, and it does damage to all of them as well. Okay, not crazy fast early on still, but it's still decent, so you can use that if the enemy champ backs, so you manage to force them out of lane. So you can see here the E to Q again, weave in those autos, make sure you pick up those last hits. Okay, and then you're just pushing, and if you can, you take some plates. I wouldn't recommend roaming too much as Ryze, especially until you get your 6, but once you pick up 6, actually, it's kind of like a mini TF ult. You can look to maybe roam and grab some kills in the top of the bot lane if enemy champions are overextended.
I care about these.
Okay, so we're still pushing for that lost chapter. We want to try and rush that as an item. We've already used our TP. There's two things we can do whenever two waves connect. We can decide to let the enemy push into us or to push the wave into them with EQ. Obviously, this will depend on how much vision you have and if you want to make yourself susceptible to ganks. I generally still, until I know I'm going to get a good back off, I have enough gold, I like to play passive. If she steps up though, we're going to start our combo off on her, always start it with that Q, and then we can just follow up here, get the kill. Okay, you can spit out a lot of damage if you're good at hitting your Qs. Okay, and this is why Ryze is like one of these weird champs where some people are like, man, this guy's like super B tier, D tier, C tier, like not an A tier champion. But if you're actually good at landing your skill shot Q and you can just click your W and your E's in between that, you can actually pop people like for good amounts of damage very, very quick. And as a scaling champ, if you do happen to get ahead, it can be very, very oppressive. Because now that we have our lost chapter, I'll show you guys a cool trick you can do with Ryze once you have lost chapter and ult. Because this gives you enough mana to shove waves pretty much non-stop. And with the ult, you have that escapability now if a gank comes. So one technique you can do in lane is just to start shoving relentlessly. Okay, so you're going to just try and EQ the wave non-stop. Every time your E's up, you're just going to EQ the wave, and if they stand in that wave, they're going to get hit as well. So see here, we're just EQing the waves non-stop. Once you get the wave shoved under, the champ is going to be exposed to your E's and your Q's, and you can just start to burn them down and start machine gunning them. Even if I didn't kill her there, if she was here, we could just fire Q's and then maybe even E off the wave and Q to just keep damaging them. It becomes very hard for the enemy champions to farm on the turret. And then you mix that with the fact that you have the phase rush in your rune set, you can just EQ auto or even EWQ for the stun, and then just run away for free. So I'll show you guys that combo in a second when they're under tower. That combo for the free phase rush proc and basically being able to burst them with a little bit of damage without taking too much damage yourself is to EWQ. That gives you 3 procs for your phase rush to run away, but it also stuns them so they can't trade back at you. Okay, so again, EQ waves, if they want to sit in it, that's fine. Right, so we're just going to push one more wave in here. And I'll show you guys the EWQ combo, okay? So EWQ, you can see it stuns them, and then you can just follow up with more EQs. But man, it's even hard to hit those Qs on a bot, so I would recommend, again, just putting some games in, practicing those Qs. That's really how you become an average Ryze to a very good Ryze. Just understanding that there's power spikes that let you turn the switch in terms of playing passively in lane to playing aggressively. And then understanding how to combo, which is just Q, and then weaving your E and W in between Qs, and then that kind of very aggressive under turret trade, because you're going to be pushing waves a lot as Ryze. So that EWQ trade when they're under tower. So here's a good opportunity. Wow, she actually stunned us here. But while we run away, we're just going to show you guys again. All you do is spam your abilities, right? Now she's under tower. If she stays, we can easily EQ her or even EWQ her. I don't think she's staying though. She's probably running the whole way back. Okay, so let's drop this turret, and then we'll try and show you guys how we can use our R aggressively in the side lane. You can see now, even just with the Lost Chapter, we really haven't run out of mana. And our EQ combo is pretty much clearing minion lines instantly. You can like shove waves so easily as Ryze. Your farm numbers should be very, very good when you play this champion if you're doing it correctly. And that means that you have a bunch of gold income coming in to get your item spikes and do a lot of damage. So we just about took this turret down here. We're going to have to clear one more wave, but it shouldn't be too much of a problem. I'd recommend letting the wave crash on your first EQ if you're worried about mana, because it just spreads to the whole wave. Especially if you have a cannon like that, you can spread it to the whole wave. Again, she's going to be here, so we're going to lead our combo with our Q, and then if she steps up, we'll just EQ, WQ, okay? So turret's down, EQ, WQ, and then she's dead. Right, you can see now that we're a little bit of ahead, we can just start to one tap these champions with our combo. Okay, so let's recall, let's buy our full first item, and then let's use our ult to get into a side lane and maybe surprise an enemy champion. So building towards that Everfrost as our first item. The boots of lucidity are great because it gives Ryze so much ability haste, but if you wanted some magic pen, you could build the Sork shoes. Again, a little bit game dependent. We'll just pick up the Sork shoes here and some more armor as we get into our Zhonya's. And then I'm just going to show you guys, even if turret was still up, what you could do here. Okay, so before you roam anywhere, obviously, one of the golden rules is to shove your wave. Alright, so let's jump back to mid, let's shove the wave, and then let's see if there's a roam possible top or bottom with our ultimate. Again, it's kind of like a mini TF ult, so you want to look for opportunities to gank a lane. Obviously, it's better to gank your winning lane, so if one of these lanes was winning for sure, we try and focus that lane instead. But if you're fed, honestly, it's fine. So Q, E, Q, W, Q, she's dead. And then we just E the wave, and you can see how fast we can start to kill these waves. Using your E on that cannon minion spreads the flux generally to the whole wave. But if she steps up here, E, Q, W, Q, and she's gone too, you can see we're just machine gunning everyone down. And now we'll take a quick peek. You know, he's gankable, potentially. He's already 1v2. So let's start to move down towards this E. If these guys have this tower shoved with a minion wave, we can do our EWQ combo. Okay, it looks like that's going to shove back out maybe. So here, EWQ combo, you can see it just basically allows you to trade for free because that W procs the flux, meaning that they get fully stunned. Alright, the EQ combo is even better when you're against champs that are melee, because they just get caught in the flux, like they can't go anywhere. Again, here, this E, if he steps up, I'm going to do my EWQ combo and just get my free proc on the movement speed and just back out. If he doesn't step up, we're just going to clear these waves out and do the same thing. Okay. So here we're going to do EWQ if he steps up. He didn't really step up, so we're just going to walk away without taking too much tower damage. But if he does come up again, we can EWQ him. Right, so Qs. Just clear out these minion waves. We got some stuff going on here in the mid lane, so let's try gank mid here. Okay, so we're gonna have to be careful here because these guys are gonna be 2 versus 1. But we're just gonna try and ult in behind these guys and then use our Everfrost as well to stun them and try and get a good combo off. Okay, our Everfrost was on 3. I thought it was on 2. We're gonna have to back up here. That was a misclick by me. I thought it was in my number 2 slot and I completely misplayed that. Alright, let's recall. We still have TP though, so we can come back to that lane and do some good stuff. Hopefully we can show you guys a good combo with that Everfrost though. Okay, so building out towards that item. Let's TP into mid lane here and then just kill this Zyra if she stays. So here we go. This is a little bit of a better way to show that. Okay, so you can see even if you happen to miss the cone from your Everfrost, as long as you get the slow off, it's generally enough with Ryze, especially if you're fed like we are right now. And then again, pushing waves before you roam. You're going to push this all the way into the next tower, and then we can look for a play top or bottom. So let's just go look for a play top. Even though our ult's down, you can still look for plays, especially if you start to get a little bit ahead of enemy champions as Ryze. You know, and don't be afraid to pick up farm like this as you go between lanes. You can burn camps down so fast, even multi-camps, just because of your AoE. You can still catch people like this, obviously, maybe not that easily, but just coming in from behind people, you can do damage to champs under tower so easily as Ryze and so safely. So don't be afraid if you're kill up on the jungler or level up on the jungler, just to walk through their jungle, steal their farm, come up and help turret dive. Okay guys, I don't think there's too much else to cover as Ryze, so if you have any questions, leave them below in the comments. If you like the guide, obviously, let me know. I'm going to see if I can post a gameplay of Ryze so you guys can see all this stuff in action in a PvP environment and have some fun popping off with him, hopefully. Let's see if we can just grab this Zyra under tower here. So let's show you guys one more of that EWQ combo. You can see half health from a very safe distance. Almost killed them. And the spell flux is just disgusting, right? Like, you can just spread it to so many people. Look at that, almost one shot or even just by tapping EQ on the wave. Alright guys, I will catch you in the next one.